Well, today's project, we're going to be making a cam bearing installer tool. Got these cam bearings I need to put into Super M block, and I need to press them in. I do have the remover, so that's only a hammer type. I hate hammering these in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with one first, see how it works. But an installer tool is going to look very similar to this. You'll see the step on her where you can slide this in. You can put a shaft through and a nut on the shaft and just pull them things in with a couple wrenches instead of beating them in. Anyway, we'll get set up on the bandsaw to see if we can start cutting off some pieces. Okay, you got the piece cut off in the bandsaw. Went really good. Next thing I'm going to do is get it set up in the lathe, and I'll do a facing cut and square this thing up. Okay, got the piece squared away in the lathe. I got started already. I got a little bit left to finish up here. Still see a few saw marks right in there. We'll get that. I did do a center hole in her. I just took a center bit, locked the tailstock down, feed her in by hand. Got that all established. So anyway, we'll finish squaring this end off, and we should be good to go there. As you see, I don't have a power cross feed on here. I got to do it by hand. It makes you pay attention to what you're doing, and it gets the job done. So should be the final pass on this end. I'll be satisfied with that being squared up. Okay, that's done. I think I'll flip that over and we'll dress up the other end. Okay, got it all squared up, both sides. Next thing I'm going to do, we're going to bore a hole to 3/4 inch in here. What I do have a mandrel. I'll get it bored to 3/4 inch. I'll stick it on this mandrel. I've got a center hole in it. We'll chuck her in the lathe, and then I'll do the outside steps on the mandrel. Reason I'm going 3/4 inch is I do have this other installer tool that fits all of these installer removers. So if I make my new ones to fit this, I've already got the bar and everything else I need. It's threaded on one end. You'll see different grooves here where you can put a clip in for different spacing on your cam bearings. So anyway, let's get this thing set up in the lathe and we'll start boring holes. Okay, got everything set up in the lathe here, ready to drill. Got just a chuck in to get started with. I'll do a pilot hole first. I've got the tailstock locked down. I got a little container of cutting oil here. Generally what I'll do, I'll just brush a little bit on. I like to use some cutting oil. We'll get her going. We'll get her cranked up and start drilling. I just feed the bit in with the tailstock hand wheel. You can get a pretty good feel of what you're doing. I like to use new bits when I'm doing this too. They don't have a tendency to wander on you. Nice curl coming out. That's a good indication. You see it coming out on both sides. That means your drill is sharp and even both ways. It won't have a tendency to wander. And every once in a while, it's not packing in there yet. You can still see the curl coming out pretty good. I'll just back it out. Make sure it's not packing in there. I'll give it another little bit of oil and continue on. Okay, I'm nearing the end of this first hole. You still see swarf coming out. But what you want to do when you get deep like this, you want to pull this out and clean that out. You can see how that packs in there. What that'll do, that could bind your bit and break it. You don't want that to happen. That would not make your day. Clean stuff off, get a little oil on her. She's really been cutting good so far. You kind of tell she's going straight, because if you're going crooked a lot of times, that drill bit will start wobbling on you. So far, I haven't even seen it wiggle, so I'm pretty confident I got a straight hole going. Okay, we made her through. Get set up for the next size bit, and the step drill is in a couple different passes. Okay, got the through hole drilled through, first initial pilot hole there. Next step is we'll start step drilling up to 3/4 inch. What I have here, my tailstock is a number 2 Morse taper. I'm going to start out with this bit first, which is a number 1 Morse taper. So I've got my number 1 to number 2 adapter here. I'll put that on. Then I have a drill index with up to 3/4 inch with number 2 Morse taper. So anyway, I'll get set up. I'll get my first step drill in, get that done, and then we'll get into the second size. And not sure, I might do one more step, or I might try it right at 3/4. I don't know what this little lathe is capable of. So I like to take it easy with it. It has been really handy. I hate to destroy it. So okay, let's start. See, we set up to drill a hole here. First thing we do is see the tang on this, line it up in that hole. And then we'll just stick it into the tailstock, run the tailstock up, lock her down. Crank things up. A little shot of oil. We'll start running the tailstock in. Okay, made her through. Get this one cleaned out, get my next step drill set up, and we'll do another step drill. This is the 4th step drill I'm doing. Kind of doing a few more steps than I planned on. This little lathe, probably, I don't know what the capacity is, but we're going to kind of baby it a little bit. Don't use forcing it, slipping belts, breaking gears, whatever. Okay, I've got my homemade mandrel set up in the lathe. Next thing to do is to get this mounted and start turning down to size. First thing I have to do is I got to pack in a bunch of washers. Probably a solid piece there would be better. Slide this on. Makes no difference which way that goes. It's all got to be skimmed off anyway. A couple more washers to take up my thread. Get the nut on. I'll go through, I'll get my live center set up in there. The tailstock fastened down. I'll just loosen this lightly just to get everything just kind of snugged in a little bit. Tighten her down. Tighten the tailstock down. Always make sure you remove that chuck. You start that up within there, could be fun. Okay, I'll set up to start doing the skim cut. You can see my washer's a little bit off. Don't let that bother you. No big deal. Okay, coming into the end of the first cut here, I think we're looking pretty good. See what she looks like. Not too bad for an old cheap lathe. I think it'll get her done. Next step, I've got to take her down. I'll leave a step about that wide there, so the cam bearing will just slide over this piece, and then I'll do the finish cutout here, so it'll go inside the bore of the block. So anyway, I got to get myself some dimensions, figure out what my final finish size is going to be, and then we'll get this thing cranked up again. Got my step established. I got about 25 thousandths to take off of here. We'll get that finished up, and then I'll turn this step down to size, square this shoulder off so I'm nice and square, and we should be done with this piece. Just a little polish, filing and polish on her to make sure she's nice and smooth. So anyway, let's get her going again, finish her up. Okay, this is my finished cut. I'm just doing a very light skim cut. After that, we'll do some filing and polishing. Okay, I got some pretty well worn out emery paper here that I use for the final polish. I got some a little finer, but I just kind of go back and forth. Gotta be really careful here. Don't hang on real tight. And it could wrap your thumb up in there. It wouldn't be pretty. Just kind of work her back and forth, and we'll take a look and see what she looks like here. Okay, and a few fine scratches. That isn't going to hurt anything, but boy, that thing really feels good. I'm going to back the tail stack off, and we'll see how the bearing fits. Okay, I like that. Good shoulder. A little bit of slack there, not much. Just when this thing collapses in, I should be able to pull the installer out. All I got to do now is take this piece off just shy of the OD of the bearing. Okay, we'll mark this up, see how close we are to our target size of 2.370. Okay, looks like we are about 2.372, just a hair over, we'll call 372, so I got about 2 thousandths left to go. I think what I'll do now, I'll just file this down, and we'll clean her up that way and call her good. Be careful to using a file on these. Make sure you use a handle. If that does catch on something, you could be impaled into the hand. You don't have to do much. We're just going to kind of clean this up a little. Let's see what we got for measurement now. About 2.3705. I think I'm going to call that good. I'll take the bit. I'll just kind of hit the sharp corners here a little bit just to get a little rounding on them, and we're going to call this a complete project. Okay, when I take this piece off my mandrel, I mark everything. I always mark off a number 1 jaw on the chuck there. I'll mark my mandrel shaft there. You'll see I've got a mark here and I've got a mark here. That's going to line me up pretty close to my turning position, so if I ever have to put this back on, it doesn't quite fit right or something, I'm really close to where I started. So anyway, we'll get this off of here and see how the bearing fits. And here's the finished product. I think she turned out pretty good. You can see I got the step. Here's the bearing it will be installing it with. I got a few thousandths clearance in there. Hits a step. And I tested this inside the block, and it will slide through the bore of the block too. So I'm pretty happy the way that turned out. Still got one more to make of for the center bearing, but that's I won't be filming any of that. That'll be just get her done type of project there. So anyway, I think things turned out. Most of my equipment's pretty well wore out or cheap, but it seems to get the job done. Pretty much, I don't think it's too bad for being self-taught and stuff. So anyway, that's how I'm going to make the driver. When I get in everything else made, we'll get in and install this and see how it works. That'll be it for this one.